Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Secure the Seat Live. My name is Minda Harts and I'm so happy that you're here. Drop in the chat how your weekend was if you're watching us live here on LinkedIn. But if you're watching us after the fact, still use the chat and let us know how your weekend was or how your week is so far. You could be anywhere on the internet right now and you're here with us, so I don't take that lightly. If it's your first time joining Secure the Seat, welcome. You're automatically part of the squad. You don't have to wait for the membership card. It's automatic. And if you've been rocking with us every Monday, you are family, you're part of the squad, and we appreciate you showing up. Make sure that you all continue to build that community with each other. I know many of you watch us primarily on LinkedIn, but you watch us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook as well. So thank you for how you stream the content. And don't forget to tag somebody. You're definitely going to want to tag somebody in the chat here on LinkedIn, because this is going to be an episode that I know is going to really touch your spirit. One of the things that I've been thinking about lately is just the year, right? We're in November. Woulda, coulda, shouldas. There's a lot, right? There's wins that we've celebrated. There's some misses, some disappointments. Maybe some of you even had some health issues or some family stuff going on. And sometimes we can feel like we can't dust ourselves off and try again. And so today's episode is really special because we're bringing you all things Harts in this episode. And we have my brother from another mother, Stephen A. Hart, who many of you know, is a friend of Secure the Seat, but then also my brother from the same mother, Mike, who you know as well. And we're just going to talk about, some things that may have caused us a little pain on the journey and how we reframed it. Just earlier today, I was speaking to a group of scholars at this university in Chicago, and they were reading You Are More Than Magic, my young adult book, which was really cool that they were having their scholars class read You Are More Than Magic. And I met with them to do like a little talk back. And one of the things that they were talking about is the question kept being asked, what do you do when you get rejected? What do you do when you feel rejection? And I stopped them in their tracks and I said, first of all, let's stop calling it that, right? No one's rejecting you. It's not tied to you. That situation just is not for you, but you're going to find what is for you, right? So yes, that job, that internship did not come through, but instead of you saying that they're rejecting me, it's this is not for me, and I'm going to continue to apply for the things that's going to meet me and align with me. And I think sometimes, and I told them, it's the language that we're constantly using. And I also want to remind you that yes, you might not have gotten that promotion, or something might have not quite landed the way your vision board had planned it to be, or your New Year's resolutions, but there is that thing where you can dust yourself off and try again, that you deserve it, and to give yourself that space and grace. And sometimes we just need to know what it looks like. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about that, because as you near the end of the year, we want you to be able to have the right mindset going into the new year. And sometimes it's just the power of community, and well, all the time it's the power of community, really. But I just want you to get your tambourines ready, get your amens ready, and definitely leverage the chat and let us know what you're thinking. So I'm going to bring everybody to the stage and we're going to have a good old conversation about it. Hey, family.
Hey, Minda. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Stephen. What's up, Minda?
Yeah, so Stephen, for those who might been living under a rock, don't know who you are, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yes. So founder of a brand called Isles Media. I'm best known for being host of the Trailblazers.fm podcast, a platform I launched almost 7 years ago. Actually, I was looking in my frame, and right here on my Hall of Fame, my podcasters Hall of Fame, is my dear sister M. And that interview was almost 6 years ago, M, which is crazy. But I'm also a marketing leader in the world of cybersecurity, and happiest to be Kristen's husband and, dad to two amazing crumb snatchers.
They're getting pretty soon, Stephen. They're not going to want you calling them crumb snatchers.
They don't want it now, but they'll always be the crumb snatcher.
Awesome. Well, thank you for always being a supporter and friend of the show. And those who don't know, Mike, my partner in Shine here, and holds things down behind the scenes. Mike, tell everybody a little bit more about yourself too.
Absolutely. Managing director for the Memo LLC, AmandaHarts.com. She wants me to say that first, so I'll get that out the way. I'm her I'm her brother also. And then also I'm a new author of affirmation book I released earlier this year. So check that out, MikeHarts.com. But just excited to be here today. You all know me from the show, and just excited to be doing this with my brother and sister here for sure.
Awesome. So, at the top of the show, I had mentioned that, people have had some setbacks, but we're hopefully setting ourselves for some comebacks if people haven't experienced that yet. But the first question I want to pose to everybody is, tell us about a time when you had a setback and how you eventually reframed it so that you didn't stay in it and you could rebuild. So, Mike, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of something that happened to me a few years ago with my career. And I had been in the industry of transportation for many, many, many years and kind of, cut my teeth in that industry. And I had got to a place where me and my boss weren't gelling, coworkers weren't gelling. It just wasn't working out. I know many of you know what it's like when God is telling you something indirectly through others around you, right? Where things aren't it's just not clicking. And I had two options at that point. I could press through and keep going and, pull myself up by the bootstraps, or I could say, well, it may be time for a career change. It may be time for something different. It was scary. It was a time in my life where I was like, man, do I take a leap? So, I was talking to Minda, my big sis, and she was like, hey, maybe you can start, doing a little opportunities for the company. And I was like, man, this is something way different than I'm used to. But it was one of the greatest blessings of my life, because it catapulted me into the future. And I looked at that at the moment as, man, this job is rejecting me. This job is not appreciating me for my talents. I've been in this industry for 15 years and I know the ins and outs of transportation. I know what I'm doing. Why aren't they appreciating me? But it was time for change. It was time for something different. It was time for me to learn a new skill set. It was time for me to take what I already knew and to help the new company here. So I'm excited about what happened to me, and I could have looked at it two ways. I could have took the other way of being sad and depressed and mad about these people not, affirming me and wanting me, but I decided to do something different, and it paid off.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, because I think people tend to forget that we have choices, right? Sometimes we're in these situations and we feel like, oh, the only choice is just stick this one out, or whatever. But we do have multiple choices once we're able to see it from different perspectives. And I'll be honest, when we had that conversation back then, I didn't know what it would look like up until this point, and you've been just, a blessing to me in many ways. And I'm glad that we've been able to, I have to tell you all, since we're brother and sister, that back in the day, before I was even an entrepreneur, my family would be like, we'll never want to work for Minda, blah, 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 blah. Funny how that happens sometimes, but it was all in, joking, because they were like, Minda's too tough, or, whatever. But actually, me and Michael, we have a really great working relationship, and it gives us an opportunity to rebuild an even stronger bond. So I'm glad that this works on many different levels, but we can reframe it. So thank you for sharing that, Stephen.
Yeah, I love the two of you. I love the sibling love. I was thinking about this whole setback piece, and I wanted to share, because a lot of people think of and have this desire to go from corporate to entrepreneurship. My setback came going from entrepreneurship back to corporate, and started with me losing more than $7 million 3 weeks into my marriage. Full disclaimer, we're still married, coming up on 15 years next June. But, I lost all this money, right? And spent the next couple of years working, and first couple of years of my marriage, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to rebuild this business. Never quite got back to where, I'd hoped it would. And then we had our first child, and it's in a different place, or my business partner, I was in a business partnership that wasn't working out, and made that tough decision that, you know what, this was it, right? I'm gonna have to walk away and start over, and talk about a setback of setbacks, right? Lost the business, had to go back to finding a job after being an entrepreneur for 6-7 years, finding myself in that time. And that was a journey, right? And the message in that is I had to accept the route, right? I had to accept the route. I want everyone right now listening to type that in the chat, right? Accept the route. And what I mean by that is that if you think of Google Maps and you're heading towards a destination and you hit a detour, right? Or you hit traffic, you hit a delay along the journey. Google Maps will oftentimes say, hey, Minda, Mike, there's another way to get there that's shorter. Do you want to accept the route? And you have seconds to decide. Do you want to accept that route? If you don't, guess what happens? You're stuck. You're stuck for how long, you don't know, until whatever else sort itself out. And so I had to accept the route to not remain stuck in this business that was going nowhere. It was likely going to take me out of my marriage, and accept a different path. And what often happens, we get off the highway on Google Maps and you end up in some area you don't know, you don't feel comfortable, all kinds of crazy happening, but God is good, right? And you end up back where sometimes it's even a better place than you were initially. It took me, it took me 5-6 years, right, on that detour to get back to a better path towards the same destination. So that's a bit about the setback that I navigated, right? And I just hope that everyone will accept the route, right, when you hit that setback.
Oh yeah, I love that so much. Accept the route, because we have choices, right? We have choices to, will this define us or will we refine it? And very quickly for me, same situation. I was in my former life for 15 years of my career. I was really good at what I did, and I was struggling, right, beyond my control, because I was the only, and I was dealing with all these like micro and macro aggressions, and it was just starting to really make work hard for me. My mental health was declining, all these different things. But and I just remember sitting, when I was kind of at my wit's end, crying in the car, thinking, I did all of this. I went to school, I got a master's degree. I've wear my hair the straightest. I accept the casual Fridays that really ain't casual Fridays. I've done all of the things to be what everybody wants me to be in this workplace. And for what? For what? Like, I'm here just struggling. Yes, I can pay my bills and those things are good, but what could more look like, right? What could thriving look like? And at the time, I felt like it was such a setback, and I had moved from one coast to the other. And I thought, man, clearly I'm not making good decisions. I should have never came this way. And I really mourned the seat that I had, and I was blaming myself and all these different things. And then I had to eventually reframe that and say, I have a choice in this matter. I can stay here and, lick my wounds, or I can start to heal and figure out what that looks like. And once I was able to, take my moment to kind of do my crying, but say, I'm more than this, I'm better than this, that these people, these bosses, these so-called whatevers, they don't define my path. I do, and God does. And so I'm going to get back out there and dust myself off again. Then I started creating my own products, through the memo and those sorts of things. And even while I was creating the memo, I was still working at my old job, but I was starting to get toward my goals, continuing to get back on my goals, right? No longer letting people define what those goals were. And I say that to say, I mourned that seat at that table so much, right? But once I realized that the seat that was waiting for me was way better than the one I was trying to hold on to like a tight grip. Now my seat is better than it ever was if I would have stayed in that zone, right? I'm at seats at top companies now. They listen to what I have to say. I get to ask the questions, right? Like those sorts of things. And sometimes we have that vice grip on what feels comfortable, but it's not meant for us. And we look at it as a setback because it's not working out, but there may be some shifting that we need to take. And I think it's so important to just remember that these setbacks don't dictate our future. They can, depending on what choices we make, right? But you get to ultimately define what success looks like for you. But I want to hear from you all real quick if you have anything to add before we move on to the next. Mike, you have anything?
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think a lot of times we take rejection, or whatever you call it, as a final destination. Like somebody rejected us, or if you think about relationships, somebody did that to us, and whether they meant something about you, that's you have to get beyond that somehow, because that situation is going to make you better. It's going to teach you so much. It's going to transform your life, because if you would have went down that path with that thing or that job or that person, what if that job really didn't want you and then they hired you? Like, that's going to be miserable. What if that person didn't want you and and they were with you because they didn't want to hurt your feelings? Like you were saying, Minda, like this stuff shapes us and defines us, and you have a better seat than ever now. What if all of that would have worked out comfortably and you would have been in your cushy corporate chair, and that wasn't for you, that's for someone else, right? That chair's set for somebody else who, that's their dream, that's their career, that's their goal. That's not yours. So man, these things only make us better.
100%. Agree with everything you both just said.
I love it. Did you have anything you want to add, Stephen?
Not really. No, I think you nailed it. I don't need to add to that one.
We got all the tambourine moments going. If you're enjoying today's episode and it's preaching to you, please put a 1 up in the chat, and just keep it coming. The next question that I want to ask, and I'll start with you, Stephen, is what advice do you have for our viewers watching who feel right now, I just can't catch a break? All that's good. I'm glad Michael had a good opportunity. I'm glad Stephen figured it out. I'm glad Minda's at the seat she wants. But right now, I just feel like, man, I just don't know if I can make it through the week, through the day, to the next hour. What do you want to tell them?
I'm there right now with you. Like I literally, I've shared with Mike and Minda, in this past week, right? I've been experiencing burnout. In the last 3 years, I felt like I can't catch a break. And you're gonna have those days where, and I had many of those days where Minda is one of my best friends, right? She'd be like, Steven, just take it one day at a time. And one day at a time is paralysis. I can't even look at one day at a time. And in that time, what I reframed as sort of a mantra to get me through that season was to take it one task, one step at a time. When you're laying on the floor, on the couch, you're in tears, you are depressed, you are overwhelmed with anxiety, and you can't move, you can't look at a whole day of things that you need to get done. You need to just focus on what's one thing. You just need your wheel turning. What is one thing, one task for work? Don't look at your whole work day and all that has to happen. Think of just one thing. Just get your wheel turning. And there are a couple other things to tie to that, right? and somebody listening to my voice right now might be there, where I touched on anxiety 2 years ago. Actually, 2 years ago, October, right? I had my first panic attack. Never had a panic attack before. I'm driving from Florida back to Maryland, thinking I'm having a heart attack, right? I'm having panic attacks. Kristen was like, dude, you're having panic attacks. And, through therapy, realized that's me projecting a what if scenario into my present that doesn't exist. Often the worst possible what if scenario. If you're listening to my voice and you're experiencing anxiety and you feel like you can't catch a break and it's creating that, listen, you have to address that first, because none of the advice we give you is going to help, right? So right now, walk outside after you finish this episode. Walk outside, go hug a tree. Not hippie biz, right? Like, go hug a tree. And the reason I say that is it brings you back to the present. You're not projecting. You can't project that what if into the present moment. Anxiety in the present can't thrive, right? And then the other thing, Minda, I was talking to you about this week, right? The other advice is understanding that not everybody gets the same level of your energy, your focus, and your time. And I was relating the idea of a dartboard this week. This is actually advice given to me by my therapist. And she said, look, the bullseye on a dartboard is so small. It's at the center, right? But if you picture that, you're going to place the people and the things at the very center who get the most energy, focus, and time, right? And then the layers out get less energy, get less focus, get less time. And some of these people and things that are driving you crazy, they don't even make your board. Now, the anxiety piece that I'm talking about, hugging a tree and doing the dartboard, it doesn't necessarily change your circumstances today, but it helps you to control the things you can control and helps you to get your mental, your physical, your emotional self in the right place to be able to receive the opportunities and the blessings that are going to come your way, right? But, that's what I would say right now is, take it one task, one day at a time, and get the things you can get, under control in the right place so that you can receive that next break.
Oof, that was really good. And, I'm glad that you shared the bullseye, because we were talking about it this week, and it was something that really helped me think through how my energy is, because part of this, what we're talking about today, is also when we are experiencing setbacks, who's around us, who's the squad, right? That dictates kind of how we're seeing certain things, how we're experiencing our energy. Your time is one of the most valuable assets that you have, and how you're spending it in your mind, how you're spending it in the present is really indicative of your future. And so definitely take heed. Listen, tag somebody in the chat, because everybody needs to hear today's conversation. When we're done, all of the replays go to YouTube. Go back and listen to it, because it's one of those things where you're like, okay, it hits a little different when you're reminded of it. And so take this advice. I'm sure that each of us have said something that has resonated with you today, and we all experience it. None of us are exempt from experiencing a setback. None of us. I've had a few setbacks already this week. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and it's just like, but the reframing of them, right? And so, Mike, I want to ask you, for those who are out there right now, they're feeling like their backs against the wall, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of a little bit of what Stephen was saying, I was going to say, you made a good point, Stephen, when you said you can't ingest any of this until you get healed, until you get to a place of, I've talked about it, I've vented, I've gotten the help, I've worked through everything, and then now I can receive this information. A lot of times we try to shortcut the process by possibly looking at a YouTube video or looking at some sort of tutorial or trying to do things behind the scenes and not get help from anybody. But sometimes we have to sit down with a therapist, a pastor, a family member, or something. We got to sit down with somebody and just talk and talk and talk and talk until we're healed. So we're not going around and projecting all these unhealed layers and snapping on people, getting mad at people, doing all these things because we're not healed. So we have to understand that as soon as healing comes, then opportunity comes. As soon as healing comes, then you can walk into your next steps in your career and your family and your life. A lot of times God is holding things back because we're not ready. We're not healed. We're not at the place where we can accept that money, or we can accept that family, or we can accept the love that we think we deserve, and we know we deserve. But we have to get healed from a few things, or a few hundred things in my case. We have to get healed from a few things in order to get to the next level of whatever we think our dreams and goals are.
Yes.
Yes. All the tambourine moments from both of you. And, just a reminder to all of you is the advice that I would give if you're feeling like you can't catch a break, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some space, right? Because we can be our worst critics. We know the setbacks, right? Each of us sitting here today, you all watching us live or after the fact, there's setbacks that we will never even utter to people, that we don't even want to tell nobody about, right? And then there's ones where we don't mind having those conversations, but we get in our heads, we beat ourselves up, the woulda, coulda, shouldas, and all those sorts of things. And that is not productive to the process, right? Acknowledging is great. We want to live in reality, but don't keep playing that thing on a loop in your head. Don't keep beating yourself up. Be proactive now to move past that. What are the steps I need to take to get my healing? What are the steps? Who's the network that I need to tap into? You're on LinkedIn, right? Are you using LinkedIn the way you need to be using LinkedIn to set yourself up for your next best thing, right? We're right here on this. Many of us use LinkedIn free, right? Some of you have paid accounts, but we all have access to making those connections, leverage, Stephen's community, my community, Mike's community, leverage these things, right? Because you don't have to, here's the thing, you don't have to have the setback sitting alone. You don't have to have the setback sitting alone. And so we just want you to know that we're here for you. We all experience it. It's part of life, but it's the bounce back, right? It is the bounce back. And you get to decide what that bounce back looks like. Give yourself that space and grace. And we know that better is on the other side, right? We know what it feels like to sit and wallow in that thing. But the thing that you get to do today at any time is rebuild. And you get to decide what that looks like. You may not have all the tools, all the money, all the skills right now, but what part of the equation can you solve? Start working on that piece. Oh,
yes.
This is good for all of us. I think we all need the reminder, right? We're in November. There's still, you'll see all these memes and gifs about, all gas, no break. Let's give it all we got, all this stuff. But make sure that you are right within first before you're rebuilding. And I think that's like a common theme here. I hope you are enjoying today's Secure the Seat. I know it's more like kind of kumbaya, but I think, again, part of Secure Your Seat is making sure that your seat mentally is secure, that your heart is good, and that you have the right mental hygiene as you move forward to, slay those goals at every turn. And so you know that we sometimes go, well, I go from sometimes ratchet to Christ-like, but those Goliaths in your life, okay, you can be the David and you can sling those down. And so there's no giant that you can't slay. And I just want you to remember that. Now we're going into our bonus episode because we could talk about this stuff all day, but all of us have work that we have to do. So I'm not even going to ask them about the grits and rap lyrics. I'm not going to ask them about grits because I already know the answer for both of them. So we're just I don't want to break my heart here today. So we're going straight to the rap lyric. And the only way to eat grits is with salt and butter and sometimes cheese and shrimp. And we're not going to mute their mics, so we don't want to hear what they have to say on the matter. So starting with Stephen, with a good bowl of grits, what is a good rap lyric and why?
I love it. Listen, Wu-Tang had a line in Mystery of Chess Boxing that says, well, I'm a sire. I set my microphone on fire. And it's kind of like, where I feel like I'm heading in 2023. There's been so much. We talked about all the setbacks, and I feel like I'm coming back in 23 to take the seats at the table, right? I'm looking at relaunching Trailblazers 3.0, and Minda knows I'm working on a brand new weekend podcasting boot camp that I'm launching in January. So real excited. But I'm a channel my Wu-Tang.
I love it. And you always set the microphone on fire. I love it. I hope that people will, set their microphones on fire this week too. Mike, what's your rap lyric and why?
One of my favorite lyrics and rap lyrics, and it says, I thought about quitting, but I saw who was watching. And so it's a little known Christian artist, but here's why the lyric is so important to me, because I think a lot of times we feel like, quitting and we feel like stopping, but there's somebody depending on you and counting on you. And that doesn't mean to add pressure on you. That doesn't mean to keep going. That means just be vulnerable, just be yourself, just be good, just get your help, because there's people depending on you. So if you're not healed and helped, then everybody else is going to suffer. It's not just you when you go and go and go till you drop to the ground, or you don't take care of yourself. Like, other people are dependent on you and other people love you.
That part. I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to give us, she's not a rapper, but I do believe she spits bars every now and then. Mariah Carey. She said,
thought you were going to say Beyonce. I started rolling my eyes.
I know you probably thought that. I'm doing Mariah Carey today, and she said during one interview one time, I'm doing the best I can with what I got. Mm-hmm. And that really, really hits home, because just continue to do the best you can with what you've got, right? And that's about self-preservation. That's about self-actualization, all of those things. Sometimes we feel like we need the small business grant, we need the this, the that, and all the things, and turn that water into wine the best that you can, and do the best with what you have. And at the right time, your resources and all those other things will align and manifest over it. But, just be faithful over what you have right now, and do the best that you can. And so when I'm like having a really tough day, I always think about Mimi in my head. I'm doing the best I can with what I got, and we're going to keep it moving. So hopefully that helps somebody. And then the last question is, we're all leaders. And, our goal is to hopefully make these workplaces better than we found them. For all the leaders watching today, because you don't have to get one-on-one for your manager to call you a leader. You don't have to get a promotion to be a leader. We all should be leading in some capacity and making spaces better. But how can we make the workplace better than we found it? Stephen, we'll start with you.
Before I drop that, I have to tell you, that bar I just dropped, the very next line is Mariah, right? I'm a sire. I set the microphone on fire. Rap styles vary and carry like Mariah.
Oh, that's so funny.
So you dropped the Mariah. That was pretty awesome. Leadership, listen, realize that you're not always going to be right. And in this past week, I had a big thought around the strategy I was going to take for next year. And one of my right arms in the workplace said, hey, I don't agree. And I could have been stubborn and been like, no, you're going to receive my way of looking at this. And, I had an open mind to looking at it through a different lens. And we approached it. We had conflict, had a good, battle about this. But in the end, I was like, you know what? You're right. And that's leadership, right? Sometimes, you have to be able to look to your team for the right answer, not think that, your way is the only way.
I love that so much. That's so important. It's not a soft skill, it's a leadership skill. So I love that. Mike?
Yeah, I would say, I think in order to make the workplace better, I think we have to try to focus on what matters. So, when you take care of your family, you're going to show up better at work. When you connect with your friends and you have moments of hanging out and relaxing and enjoying, not only on Fridays and Saturdays, but maybe during the week, maybe you take a little time off and enjoy. When you do those things, then you'll be healthy enough to show up in the workplace. Because things pile up after a while. Then you look back, there's a big pile, and you're sitting on top of it mad at everybody. So like, we have to understand that, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our family, enjoying small moments, enjoying things outside of work is going to help us at work. Getting our mental health straight outside of work and not focus on that so much is gonna make everything better.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And yes, there's no such thing as work-life balance, but I've heard somebody say I wish I knew who it was, but they said work-life integration. And I think you have to have that integration in there to have that work-life integration. So let's try to integrate that more often and listen, which is key. And the last thing that I'll say to make the workplace better is speak somebody else's name in the room. I think sometimes we're so, it's me, and we're in rooms that some people aren't in yet. And so how can we speak someone else's name in the room? And you don't have to be the most senior person. I often hear people say, well, I'm not the CEO, or I'm not the CEO, or CIO, but you still have influence in some regard. And so it takes nothing to speak someone else's name in the room. So next time you're in a room that someone else isn't in, highlight someone, and let's normalize doing that, because that is what leadership is, making sure that we're amplifying other people. And so again, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Secure the Seat. It's important that we check in with ourselves, don't beat ourselves up. We've all had a year. It looks very different ways. And if you're on social media, sometimes you would look and say, wow, they're having a great year. They're having all these different things, all these accolades and things that you're seeing on the internets and the social medias, but you don't really see what happens behind the scenes of people. So the last thing I'll say is, comparison is a thief of joy. So don't compare your setbacks to somebody else or wins and those sorts of things, because you never know what people are going through. And so let's take all the advice that was given today by my great guests and family, and let's go for it, because we all we got. So make sure you do that. Stephen, where can people find you, connect with you?
You can find me at stephenahart.com and at Stephen A. Hart on Twitter and the Gram. And I'm right here on LinkedIn.
Make sure you follow Stephen on LinkedIn. Mike, where can people find you, follow you?
Yeah, MikeHarts.com. Then all my social media handles are at Mike Harts now.
Perfect. And as we close out, we're going into our affirmation. Mike, can you take us home with that?
Yeah, our affirmation for November is, this is only making me wiser. And it fits into everything we were saying, everything that you're going through. Family, this is only making us wiser. So take that with you this week.
Listen, and that's that on that. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you showing up. Take these gems. Again, tag somebody in the chat, because we want to make sure we amplify this so that somebody had a setback. Somebody's trying to figure out how to come back. Okay, so share this information, and we'll see you next Monday. Have a great day, a great week, and keep securing your seat.
Right Within paperback out now. Get that.
Thank you.